So yeah, I will not talk about geometric science of information today. I will talk about what I do as an ambassador. This is a bit fancy, but as a member of the Foundation L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science, and as other foundations, what we do is mainly raise awareness about the lack of diversity in science and try to combat that lack of diversity. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's take an example to illustrate unconscious bias in action. This is a study that has been done in New York. It's referred in the New York Times, so if you want to get the data out of it. Basically, there was a job offer, science lab manager, and the professor in charge of it created two identical resumes, one with a female name on top of it and one with a male name on top of it, and sent randomly to his colleagues these resumes. And then his colleagues were asked for each resume, do you think you will hire that person? Do you think that person is competent for that job? And what salary will you give to that person? And the result is that the resume with the male's name was just more competent, that male person will be more likely to be hired, and the salary will be higher. So this is unconscious bias in action. Of course, when they see a female resume, they will not tell, I won't hire that person because she's a female. It's way more subtle than that. And this is unconscious bias. And what's interesting about this study, and there are a lot of studies like that, is our reaction or your reaction when you hear a study like that. And usually when I say at lunch or whatever, oh, there is a study, blah, 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 and tell an example like that, the reaction I get is, this does not happen today anymore, at least not in developed countries, or not by people that are well educated, and I will never do this. And my question today is, really? And I will give myself as an example first and know, so for example, yesterday, there was the 50th anniversary of INRIA, and I went to this village with the tech startups, so tech startups from INRIA who presented their products, and there was a stand where there were a man and a woman presenting a product. And I went to the stand and I asked the man, I was like, tell me about your product. I asked the man. And I'm an ambassador from L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science, so I'm supposed to be aware of this thing. And I corrected myself. I was like, why am I asking the men in priority? And I started discussing with both of them. So that's unconscious bias in action. And what I wanted today is two experiments. So you will be asked to participate. One is kind of, do we know today's situation? It will basically be a quiz of the first presentation we had today on numbers. Do we know numbers about the figures about the lack of diversity in science? This is something I do in high school. Just as Valérie, I go in high schools and try to present science to young people, female and male, and I ask them if they know about the lack of diversity in science. That will be the first experiment. And the second one will be a social experiment that has been made by Google Analytics to raise awareness about your unconscious bias. But first, so yeah, L'Oréal UNESCO for Women in Science, each year around 25, so it was 20 before 2016, 30 after that, women are awarded prizes. And as a result, each year we visit, so each woman visits on average 3 high schools. So far, I visited 5 high schools, and each time I have spoken to 100 students, so I've seen 500 students. And this is the game we play. So you're gonna tell me if it's less or more, so it's obvious. Do you think it's less or more than 30% female students in French university in science, including medicine? So who thinks it's less? Raise their hand. Half, less than half. It's less, it's 28%. 25% women in French engineering school who think it's less. Now people got the thing. But no, it's more, it's 27%. It's still not a lot, right? 5% of Nobel Prizes in science were awarded to women. Of the prize in 1901, who think it's less? At a half. It's less, it's 3%. 15 female PhD students, actually it's in math, sorry, in France, who think it's less than 15? One. More. 11% in math. 10% leaders or co-founders of venture-backed US startup are female. Who think it's less? Same one. A third. 11%. The last two are from my own data, so the 500 high school students I've seen. I usually tell them to tell me which scientists they know. How many scientists do you think they are able to give me? How many names do you think they are able to give me? Is it more or less than 2? Oh, female scientists, sorry. Is it more or less than 2 names that they can give? Is it less? Yeah, they can only cite Marie Curie. And again, based on my own experience, 10% of high school students think that women are less capable in science. Do you see it's less than that? Who think it's less? 3. It's less, it's around 5%, but each time it's really disturbing. So once I was in this big room with 100 high school students and I asked who thinks that women are less capable in science, and I remember seeing 3 girls looking at each other and be like, of course. And then they looked at me because I was staring at them and they were like, whoa. But in fact, in high school, a lot of people, and including women, think that they cannot do science. So take-home message number 1 is acknowledging today's situation, especially high school situation, and communicate on science and scientists. The 2 names that they can give me when we speak about science, Einstein and Marie Curie, which are not really on that of our times. So it would be great if they could give more names, like actual scientists from today. Okay, second experiment, acknowledge the unconscious bias. So, what is unconscious bias? Actually, it's not necessarily something bad. It can be very useful. So we receive 11 million bits of information every moment, and we can only consciously process 40 bits, which means that a lot of things that we are doing is unconscious. But it can be really useful. For example, imagine the prehistoric area where we were, drawing paintings in caves. And imagine you'll go out of your cave and you go hunting, and what you see is that. If you process every single bit of information, like, oh, this is a big animal, it has 4 legs, maybe it's a mammal, oh, by the way, it looks dangerous, it's a lion. By the time you do that, you're basically dead. So it's good that you have an unconscious bias that makes you react very fast so that you go away. But unconscious bias can lead to problems, as the study that I mentioned about the resume with the male and female name on top of it, which means that it's good that we acknowledge it. So we're going to make an experiment. I'm going to put some word on the screen. If it's male, you're going to raise your left hand and say left. If it's rated to female, you're going to raise your right hand and say female. Very simple, right? Okay, let's try it. It's not complicated, right? I don't hear anything. Louder. So you're supposed to say left. Okay? Okay, let's do it again. Hands. Okay. Easy, right? But you need to be louder, otherwise it will not work. Next thing we're gonna do, same with 2 other categories. So if the word that shows up is related to liberal art, you say left loudly. If it's related to science, you say right and you raise your hand. Let's go. Okay. Good job. Now, we're gonna mix the category. So if it's female or liberal art, you're gonna bring your left hand up and say left. If it's male or science, right hand and right, and loud. Let's go. Okay. Now can you guess what happened? What's the last game? We're gonna mix the category. Ready? So if it's female or science, left hand and left, loud. If it's, oh no, sorry. If it's male or liberal art, left hand and left. If it's female of science, right hand and right. Let's go. So, who think they were slower at the last game or confused? To me, it seemed a bit more confused. So that's unconscious bias in action. We associate unconsciously liberal art with female and science with male. Even if, when we ask about it, we're like, of course not. But truth is, we do. So take-home message 2, call out your unconscious biases. Be aware of it. If you go to a stand of a startup, there is a male and a female, there's no reason you're gonna speak to the male. And call others unconscious biases. Thank you.